Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor and I share these What's for Dinner videos every Sunday to hopefully motivate you to cook more for your family and to give you some new meal ideas. But it's real life over here. I share everything that I make for dinner over the week, even if there are fails. Even if my family hated it, I share it all because things happen and I just want y'all to know, like, when things happen in your kitchen, like, it's normal to have mistakes and for things to fail and for your family just to hate them. It happens to everyone. So that's why I share everything that we eat. And I definitely had a few fails this week, so make sure you stay tuned for that because I was just like very irritated. But I'm gonna go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night I made some stroganoff. This is basically like hamburger helper stroganoff, but homemade, and it's made in one pot, and it's super easy and pretty quick to make, and it's definitely a family favorite. I grew up on like boxed hamburger helper, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like it's just as easy to make, like, with all the ingredients in my cabinet. You just like make your own seasoning basically, so that's why I just prefer to make it homemade. You save a little bit of money because you already have like all the seasonings anyway. So I just start off with a pound of ground beef, and I'm seasoning it up with some salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, rosemary, and then the umami seasoning from Trader Joe's. If you don't have this, you can just leave it out. I just feel like it adds some nice umami flavor, which is really good, especially since I don't put mushrooms in my stroganoff. You definitely could if you like mushrooms, but I don't like mushrooms, so I don't do that. And then I just cook this until my ground beef is browned, and then if there's any excess grease, I will drain that. Then I add in about a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce and then a big spoonful of minced garlic. I don't measure garlic, I just do a lot all the time. And I let that cook for about 30 seconds to a minute. And then I'm going to add in all of my liquid. I'm going to do a cup of beef broth, a cup of milk, and 1.5 cups of water. Give that all a good stir, and then I will add in 4 cups of egg noodles. And once that's all in, I will make sure my noodles are kind of covered with all of the liquid, and then bring it to a boil. And then once it comes to a boil, I just reduce the heat to a medium low and let this simmer for 8 to 10 minutes or until the egg noodles are done. Once the egg noodles are tender, I go in with about half a cup to a cup of some sour cream, just however much you like, however creamy you want it. And then I also taste it now and see if I needed to add any more seasoning. Typically, I end up adding like more black pepper because I like it pretty peppery. And then I just leave this on like a low heat for a few minutes, make sure it gets warmed, like all that sour cream gets warmed through. And it also helps thicken the sauce. If you don't want to wait for the sauce to thicken, you can add in a cornstarch slurry. It doesn't affect the flavor at all. It just helps it thicken up a little bit quicker. So you can do that if you want to, but I usually just let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes on a low heat, and then it thickens up really nicely. And to go with stroganoff, we always have a can of peas and a slice of buttered bread. That's how we always had like hamburger helper stroganoff growing up as a kid, so that is what I always do too. Saturday, we spent the day at my Aunt Peggy's house. She's got a new house with a pool. So we were there for 6 hours from like noon till 6, and it's a 45-minute drive. So then we got home pretty late. We didn't eat dinner till almost 8:30, and we just ate some frozen pizza. I knew we were going to be there all day, so I knew we'd either be eating frozen pizza or leftovers. So we all picked frozen pizza, just say like extra thin with like extra pepperoni is what the kids and I had. And then when Andy came home later, he had a like 3-meat pizza. These were from Kroger, if you saw my Kroger grocery haul this past week. And Elijah and I had salads, and Lily just had some fresh veggies. Sunday night we did nachos. This is one of those meals that my family would eat every week if it wasn't for me. They absolutely love this. I mean, I love it too. I just don't want to eat it weekly. So we've got some Tostitos scoops, and then we've got some ground beef and black beans, the Rico's nacho cheese that I keep in the freezer. I just let that thaw out in the fridge all day, and then it's ready for dinner time. I just warm it on the stove. And then we've got some lettuce, some pico, some Taco Bell sauce, some sour cream. Lily had some Taco Bell sauce on hers and some sour cream. Elijah had Taco Bell sauce and lettuce on his. And then, of course, Andy and I had like everything on ours. Monday night, I made some chicken cheesesteaks. I haven't made these in a while, but we used to love them. Like before we had kids, I would make these because chicken is cheaper than steak. And I feel like it's really hard to get a cheesesteak, like a Philly cheesesteak, right at home. I've tried, but nothing is as good as like a true like cheesesteak from a place. So I usually make chicken ones because they're cheaper. So I'm starting off by cutting up some green pepper and some onion so I can get those cooked up so we can have that on our sandwiches. I'm just thinly slicing them, and then I'm going to get those cooking in my cast iron pan and a little bit of oil and butter. While my peppers and onions were cooking, I went ahead and started working on my chicken. I've got 2 chicken breasts here that I'm going to slice thinly so I can have some nice thinly sliced chicken. And I'm also going to get it seasoned up so it can be ready to go once those peppers and onions are done. So I just sliced it as thin as I could after trimming like any fat off of it. And then I seasoned it up with some onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper, and Cavender seasoning. Once my peppers and onions were as tender as I wanted them to be, I removed them from the pan. You could leave them in if you want to, but I didn't use a big enough pan to really do that. And plus, everybody doesn't want peppers and onions on their sandwich, so I just leave them to the side and then add them to each sandwich like individually. So I added a little bit more olive oil to my pan, and then I laid my chicken in there in a single layer so that nothing was on top of each other. They are touching, but nothing is like on top of the other one. And then I just left this alone for a couple of minutes so it could get a nice sear on the bottom side. And then once that happens, I will flip them all over so they can continue cooking. Once my chicken was done, I started to assemble our sandwiches. So I've got these rolls here that I picked up from Kroger. You can find them at Walmart too. They're usually like 3 for $1. So on each one of these, I've cut it in half and I'm adding some mayonnaise, and then I'm going to spread that out. And then I will add on some of the chicken. The kids don't like the peppers, so I didn't do any peppers on their sandwiches. But on mine and Andy's, I did do some peppers and onions. Then I topped these with some white American cheese. And I've got these on my air fryer basket. I'm going to cover it with some foil and then put it in the air fryer on 350 for about 5 minutes. I don't want the bread to get toasty, like super crispy, so that's why I covered it with foil. And I just really want that cheese to melt. That's really all that I'm putting them in the air fryer for. And here's what these looked like when they were done. The cheese was nice and melty. So to go with this, those of us that like salad had salad. Lily had some fresh veggies, and then we also had some chips on the side. Lily had some Doritos Cool Ranch, and the rest of us had some nacho cheese Doritos. If you haven't made Philly cheesesteaks or chicken cheesesteaks before, definitely recommend trying it. They are very good, and I can't believe I haven't made them in so long. Tuesday night brings us to our first little bit of a fail of the week. I'm making a sheet pan shrimp boil, and it just took way longer than the recipe said it was going to take. And I ended up having to like remove the shrimp early because I didn't want it to overcook, which you'll see later. But just letting you know, this recipe was not a win. So I'm starting out with some ears of corn. I've got 3 ears of corn here, and I'm just cutting each one into fourths and adding them to my sheet pan. And then I've got some andouille sausage. I'm just going to slice that up and add it to the pan as well. Then I've got some baby red potatoes. The recipe said to have them, but some of mine were really big, so I cut some of them in quarters and some of them even smaller than that, so they were all about the same size. Then I sliced up an onion and added that to the pan as well. And finally, the last thing that I added to my pan was my shrimp. I used about a pound of large shrimp. I get my shrimp at Sam's Club, and it's already like peeled and everything, so it makes it really easy to use. Like no work at all for the shrimp. I just thaw that in the fridge overnight in a Ziploc bag because you buy it in like a big like 3-pound bag. Now I'm going to start seasoning everything up on this pan. I'm drizzling it with some olive oil and some melted butter. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of salt and pepper and a bunch of Old Bay seasoning and some minced garlic. And then I toss that around to make sure that everything is coated really well. Then I covered this completely with foil and stuck in my oven for about 18 minutes on 425. And then it was supposed to be done. It was not done. My potatoes were nowhere near done at the 18-minute mark. So I took my shrimp off and put this back in the oven, and it took another like 18 minutes before my potatoes were done. But really the only thing that it affected was that shrimp that I had to take off early because I didn't want to overcook it. Nothing else ended up being overcooked. But since making this recipe, I looked at some recipes online, some other ones that were similar, and all of them had you boil the potatoes for a few minutes first to kind of like par cook them so they were like halfway cooked before putting on the sheet pan. And I highly recommend doing that if you want to try a recipe like this. Definitely par bake or parboil your potatoes so it is a quick and easy recipe, because I thought this was going to be done in under 20 minutes and it ended up taking closer to 40 minutes. But once it finally was done and my potatoes were tender, I just put my shrimp back on the pan, just like toss them back on there. I had them in a bowl covered with foil, so they stayed warm while this finished cooking. So I just tossed them on there with that. And then to go with this, I just made some Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits, and we had some slices of lemon on the side to squeeze over this, and it was delicious. It was really good. Just keep in mind the thing about the potatoes if you plan to make this recipe. Wednesday night, I made chicken parmesan, or chicken spaghetti as Elijah calls it. He always just wants chicken and spaghetti, and his chicken always gets cut up for him to make it easier for him to eat. So to him, it's just chicken spaghetti. He doesn't have a big piece of chicken parmesan next to his noodles. So I just think that's really cute, and I hope he does that forever. But yes, I made chicken parmesan. So I'm getting my 3 bowls together of my dredge for my chicken. So on the first one, I am just adding 2 cups of flour. And the second one, I'm just whisking together 3 eggs. And then the third one, I'm going to be mixing together some panko breadcrumbs, some oregano, basil, and some grated Parmesan cheese, and some salt and pepper. For my chicken, I am using some boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I had never made chicken parmesan with chicken thighs before, usually chicken breast, but I was out of chicken breast, so I decided to try it with the chicken thighs, and it turned out great. I just tried to trim off a lot of big pieces of fat, and then I seasoned both sides with some salt and pepper. Then I filled my cast iron pan up with some oil. I did it so it was about 1/2 inch up the side, and I just heated that up. I always test to see if it's hot with a toothpick, and then if it bubbles around it, you know that it's hot enough. Usually do it over like a medium heat. And then when that was hot, I began dredging my chicken. I did have to do this in batches because it wouldn't all fit in my pan, but I'm just going to take my chicken and I dip it all in the flour first, and then into the egg mixture, and then into the breadcrumb mixture, and then it goes into the hot oil where I cooked it for about 5 minutes per side. And when those pieces were done, then I added them to a sheet pan. You don't have to make sure that the chicken is all the way cooked through in the oil. We're really just trying to get it nice and like crispy on the outside, and then it's going to go in the oven to continue cooking. So once all the chicken was done frying, I had them on the sheet pan and I topped each one with a spoonful of some marinara sauce and then a slice of mozzarella cheese and then just a little bit of fresh shredded Parmesan cheese. And then these went in the oven on 350 degrees for about 25 minutes until the chicken was completely cooked through and all the cheese was nice and melty. And while that was in the oven, I had cooked up a box of thin spaghetti and warmed my marinara on the stove, and here's what they looked like when they were done. Just served them on top of the spaghetti. You could do a salad or garlic bread or something with this, but this was already like so much work and it's really filling, so I didn't serve anything with this. Thursday night brings us to our complete fail of a dinner, which makes me really sad because as you see here, I am pulling out some steak. I'm making Mongolian beef in the crock pot, and I'm not going to walk you through this recipe because we didn't like it, but I am going to link it down below so you guys can reference like which recipe on Pinterest it is that I do not like at all. And this is the second recipe, I think it was for Mongolian beef, the other one that I tried, that turned out this way. And the thing that they have in common is the fact that the meat gets coated in cornstarch before going into the crock pot. And I think that's why it turns out so like lumpy and weird. And it just does not look appetizing. And it doesn't like, the flavor of it isn't the best either. It's just not a good recipe. But the next time I have a recipe that's even anywhere similar to this with the coating the meat in the cornstarch, I will be then frying it in a pan. But I don't know that I'm going to try a recipe like this in the crock pot. Again, it just does not turn out well for me. I think also maybe adding the cornstarch at the end instead of coating the meat with it could help. Like just cook the meat in the sauce, and then if your sauce needs to be thickened, then add cornstarch like you usually do, because this just does not look appetizing to me at all. But luckily we had some pot stickers in the freezer, so I just cooked those up really fast, and we had those with some fried rice, and my fried rice recipe will be listed down below for y'all. That is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. I really enjoy sharing even the fails with y'all. I feel like it helps y'all know like what recipes like to avoid if you see it on Pinterest. And both of these recipes had great like reviews and comments on them on their blog and like on Pinterest. So I don't know like what went wrong, or if those people just had better luck. I don't know what it is. But if you plan on trying any of these recipes, let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.